this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the SteelSeries Prime Plus. This is a tournament-ready Pro Series gaming mouse from SteelSeries, and one of several in the lineup of Prime mice, including the Prime Mini, the Prime Wireless, and the standard Prime. Now, the Prime Plus is quite possibly the most interesting of the lineup for a number of different reasons, not least of which is the fact that it has a dedicated lift-off sensor, and also its own LED screen on the underside, and programmable settings directly on the mouse itself. It also, of course, boasts SteelSeries optical magnetic switches, which you can see from the box are designed to deliver some crispy clicks, and that is possibly the best summary of this mouse, is that it has crispy clicks, and they are some of the most satisfying crispy clicks you're ever likely to find on a mouse as well. All the Prime mice are like this thanks to those optical magnetic switches, and if you want to hear them, stick with me to the end of the video because I will have a section dedicated to just those clicks without me talking. But in this bit of the video I'm going to be talking about what's included in the box, my feelings about this mouse and how it stacks up with the others and other competitors out there. I may well be doing a versus video in the near future to compare it with something else as well. Now this, like the other Prime mice, is designed to be ergonomically shaped and reasonably lightweight. It weighs in at 71 grams without the cable, and somewhere between 73 and 75 with the cable plugged in. It has a removable USB-C cable and a matte finish to it. The first thing that struck me when I got it out of the box, as I said already, it has its own onboard OLED screen that they say is ready for tournament. Basically that allows you to program and go through a number of different settings on the fly directly from the mouse without any need for software. Now it will work with SteelSeries GG and the SteelSeries engine software, and I'll show you some of that a bit later on in the video, but it's fairly interesting that it immediately works with just a few button presses and a little display that shows you sort of menu system. I'll show you that in a second. Obviously on the underside you also have those PTFE feet, and it has that slick matte finish, and I'll talk about ergonomics and things in a minute. Now when you turn it over and plug it in, you'll see that you can press and hold this button and that puts you into the menu. You can then cycle through it by pressing on it and then scrolling the mouse wheel, and that will take you through the various different option menus in there, and then you can click to go into them and adjust various settings. You'll see there's all sorts of things from the illumination of the mouse wheel to your CPI levels, which is counts per inch, so you can change between the various settings there, and all sorts of other things too, including a lift-off distance. Now, as I said, it has a dedicated sensor, and you will notice that alongside the PixArt sensor you also have that dedicated secondary depth sensor for adjustable lift-off distance, so it'll measure different distances as you lift it off the desk, which is pretty interesting in itself and fairly unique. I don't believe I've ever seen a dedicated sensor. Now, this sensor allows it to go from 0.5 to 2 millimeters in terms of lift-off distance, so that's customizable in this menu and within SteelSeries engine software as well. You'll notice the mouse only has one bit of RGB on it, and that is on the mouse wheel, but you can adjust through various different effects on the mouse itself. You can see your static, breathing, prism, that sort of thing, and it is a very satisfying little bit of RGB lighting as well. I like it because it's both subtle and yet stands out in a very nicely crafted way. It's not in your face like some other RGB lighting, so you can see that you can adjust all these sorts of things directly on here, and that's quite unique, maybe gimmicky, but it's nice that you have that ability and you don't need to worry about the software necessarily. It's all just there. Now the mouse obviously boasts some otherwise good specs, has a max CPI of 18,000, 450 IPS, 50 Gs of acceleration, 1000 Hz polling rate, and more besides. And I'll leave all the specs in the description so you can find out more about it, including the measurements and such. The optical magnetic switches are designed to give you crispy clicks for up to 100 million clicks and are designed to be nice and reliable. It's actually worth reading up on these because they're designed quite differently from your standard magnetic switches, and so should hold up over time. The mouse itself is also designed to cater to a multitude of grip styles with fingertip grip, palm grip, and claw grip as well, so you can choose those. Now you can see the detachable cable here. This is a micro USB cable, and it's also got this weird shaped triangle fit to it, so you know which way up it goes, but it is a faff to get in, and something that I found a bit annoying. However, it is a wired mouse. This isn't a wireless mouse, so for the most part you're probably going to have it plugged in all the time anyway. Not a massive drama. Shame they didn't go for USB-C, but again, you're not going to be plugging it and unplugging it all the time, so it's not really the end of the world. The mouse itself has a very nice matte finish to it. I really like this on all the Prime mice that I've tested, and also the ergonomic shape of it is very satisfying. So it has like a curve on the top of it, and if you've seen my versus videos on the other Prime mice and seen them alongside other mice, then you'll notice that the shape and the finish of it, essentially it sits quite high off the desk in the center, which means it pushes up into your palm. Now I use a palm grip, and I find that is remarkably comfortable. Also, the left hand side of it where the thumb buttons are is nicely sort of curved inwards, so it has a very nice ergonomic fit where your hand just sort of naturally fits into it, and it curves round on the side, and it just sits really nicely in the palm. The feet, as you can see, are also very slippery. They're not scratchy or noisy, and I found it slick and easy to move around. I like the matte finish because it's easy to grip onto as well. I get quite hot hands when gaming, and it doesn't struggle with problems there. It doesn't pick up oils or sweat or anything, and it just keeps going and easy to use and fun to play around with. The clicks are also remarkably satisfying, and more importantly, obviously, it actuates really quickly thanks to that optical setup. So the clicks are responsive, and it is very accurate for gaming and a lot of fun to play with. However, as I've noticed in the previous Prime designs, and it's exactly the same here because it's the same sort of overall aesthetic, is that the side buttons are just too recessed for me. The front one, for example, is very sort of tucked away in the shell, and I find it just a bit of a pain to touch and to feel when I'm playing, and this frustrates me because I often use the side buttons for simple things like a melee attack in games, or to spot or throw grenades or something like that. And you can see from some of these close-up shots that the front one especially just sits quite flush to the body. This is one of the small complaints that I have about this mouse. I think if they tweaked that, it would be a heck of a lot better, and it would really improve my overall experience with it. It's a small part of it though, and obviously there's a lot of other things going for this. Now it has a super mesh cable. It comes in at 2 meters long and doesn't really cause any issues. I'll be honest, I do prefer the wireless version of this mouse because having the wireless freedom means that it's just less chance of that sort of tugging and nagging problem that you might get if it gets caught up on things on your desk. But it's designed to be flexible and not to add too much extra weight to the thing as well, so it is a nifty little design that isn't terribly problematic. The mouse itself is remarkably understated for current mice as well. In 2022 you'll see a lot of mice with a lot lairier designs in terms of RGB lighting or overall finish. This thing is quite stealthy looking by comparison, but you can see when you've got shots of it with the RGB turned on, you'll see what I was talking about. There's just a ring through the mouse wheel, which is satisfying in terms of the RGB it gives off and the reflections from that. You can adjust it obviously within SteelSeries GG software and the SteelSeries engine, and also on the mouse itself, so you can tweak it to your liking or turn it off completely if you're not into it. But I think it adds a nice little hint of an accent. The mouse wheel as well has this nice sort of finish that makes it look like a tire, and it is perhaps verging on being a little bit loud if you're really aggressive with it. It gives quite a tactile feedback, but it can be a little bit noisy I think when you're using it, and that might grate with some people. I've not found it too bad, and it's not bad enough that my mic picks it up, for example, but it is quite noisy. Now this uses the TrueMove Pro Plus sensor as well, so it is designed to give you a really accurate response in that way. It's pro level tracking with advanced stabilization and performance. More importantly, obviously you also have that lift-off settings as well, so if you're into that sort of thing. But basically it's designed to account for tilt tracking and to eliminate any problems that you might have with angled drops and quick flicks and things like that. So if you feel like you're a pro and you've got really fast hands, then this mouse might well be the one for you. Now I'm going to dive into the SteelSeries GG software and show you some of the possibilities in there, and stick with me after that to hear the clicks of the mouse without me talking. Here I am within SteelSeries GG, which is where SteelSeries Engine now lives. And if you click on Prime Plus, you'll see the various settings that you have in here. It's not a great deal of things, but one of the things that you can do is you can change the OLED screen and create your own thing. You can upload an image, which should be 96 pixels by 24 and in black and white, or you can just draw your own. Now, I'm not very good at drawing, so I'm just going to write my own name. But you can do that, and then it's just done, and now it's on the underside of my mouse, and when I lift it up, it says Prawn on it, just to remind me who I am in case I get amnesia for some reason. You'll notice also that you have the 5 CPI levels, so I'm using 1200 at the moment, but you can obviously customize these all the way up to 18,000, which is insanely vast. And you also have the adjustable lift-off distance here, so you can see that the settings for that basically goes from high to low, but it's quite a long bar. And if you go into the software, you can see on the hardware even. If you're doing it in the hardware, I've gone into the menu now, and you can see when I adjust it in the menu, it also adjusts on here. Now on the OLED display, essentially it goes from 1 up to 8. So there's different levels. So you've got 1 as the lowest possible setting, and then 8 is the highest. And that obviously allows you to track the lift-off distance from the desk, which is how far you're lifting it up, and it can still sort of measure the movement of your mouse. I haven't found a great deal of difference in here, but if you are into lift-off distance and that's important to you, then it does have 0.5 to 2 millimeter adjustable distance. So those are the two extremes of that. You also have the macro editor, so you can go into here and you can program your own macros, and that can include keyboard macros, and then obviously you can then assign those to a specific button. So for example, we could set it up so that it then on my scroll wheel, so that when I scroll backwards it then does the macro that I want it to. And you can also see that you can go through all sorts of other settings, including changing a keyboard button, setting up launch applications, configuration, and other bits. The only buttons that are programmable are obviously the main 5 buttons and scroll up and down on the scroll wheel. It doesn't seem to be possible to program the button on the underside, because obviously that's dedicated to the menu system. But you can see if you press that button on the underside, it changes between the various CPI levels. So a standard that just changes CPI level, but if you press and hold it, you can then dive into the menu and go into a lot more settings. So there are a few things that you can do here quite easily, including macros and other things. You can also set things back to standard if you've changed them and you don't want to keep them that way. So there you have it. Fairly straightforward bit of software and a really easy to use mouse with satisfying clicks, some really interesting highlights, and an overall great design. For this price, this wired mouse delivers some fantastic response, accurate clicks, accurate tracking, and a whole lot of fun. The only downsides for me is the side buttons, and obviously I wish it was wireless, so I personally would go for the wireless version. But if you want those extra specs and obviously the ability to go through the settings on the mouse itself directly without having to worry about plugging it in and using the software, then this is the mouse for you. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.